Welcome to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 24 of The Joy of Coding. Here we are, 24 episodes in. We're going to be tearing into some Firefox bugs today, as per usual. Let's get down to business. So, here's my screen. Again, I've been bad at keeping up my blog with like previous episodes and their summaries. Um, Full disclosure, getting married, so there's like a lot of stuff in my evenings that are now like organizing all that personal stuff that have consumed the time I would normally use to write blog posts. So once that life event has passed, I'll probably get back to my blog. So until then, I'm sorry, my blog is a little stagnant. So, what are we getting up to today? So I have an intern assigned to me this summer. She's actually almost finished her internship, and we've got this project that she's working on where she's making the About New tab page. That's if you were to go to a new tab, that's this page run remotely. So it runs in the content process, and she's gotten really far along. Like it works, but in the process of doing so, she's had to sort of change some of the underlying assumptions of what is synchronous and what is asynchronous for the new tab page, and that has, unsurprisingly, caused some test breakage. And she's been spending the past couple of weeks making tests work again. And she's almost got all of them. There's one remaining, and she's having some difficulty with it, and she asked for my help. So that's what I'm going to be looking at today. Is I'm going in basically without any prior knowledge of this test. I don't know really what it does. I don't know why it's broken. I know how her patch works. Ursula is her name. I know how her patch works, but I don't know why it might cause this test to fail. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. And if we figure that out, I would also, if we have time, like to finish a review of her patch to convert new tab to run remotely. She still has probably a couple of iterations to go, but we should probably do a review and make sure I'm familiarized with the patch. And I think that's what I want to do today. Yeah, that's about it. So without further ado, I should point out, I normally point this out, this agenda that I'm referring to has like lots of handy links and stuff, and if you're just viewing this on your screen, I imagine it's quite frustrating to not be able to click on these links, but as luck would have it, there is a copy of this agenda, live updated as I edit it, in the additional links section below this video. If you were to click there and choose agenda, there's a link next to agenda, the word agenda, that will open this document, and you can follow along. And all the notes are similarly live updating. So, for example, the note that I'll be working with to figure out this test failure will be updated as I go, and that will hopefully be useful to you. If not, well, you don't need to check them out. So that's what we're up to. Let's get started. So I have a build with her patches ready to roll here. I have the Talos virtual env there. I'm going to get rid of that. So I have her patches on top. I have a build, and I have confirmed that whenever I run her that test, mock monkey test, and then the test was browser-based content test, new tab, and then browser, what was it called? New tab, report, link action.js. And it fails even without the e10s flag, so it's failing in single process mode. So let's see what this does. I know what it's going to do. It's going to fail, but I wanted to show it to you. It's worth it. It's worth the wait. So this test starts up. And then nothing. But if we look in the console, there are a number of failures for tests. Things have gone horribly wrong. And so let's take this information. This is useful information. There's a stack trace. There's lots of useful information. I'm going to extract this out. We will put it in the note. So copy, Paste. Okay. And while I'm here, someone has communicated with me in IRC. I'm just going to ask him if I can get back to him after I'm done streaming. And that test closes out because we timed out probably. Great, so I will get back to Olivier after streaming. No problem, Olivier. Okay, so here are the problems. The first failure occurs because there's this like got expected type, got sponsored expected history. I don't really know what that means, but let's take a look at the test and see if we can figure it out. So this is the test. I've got it open in Write-A-Roll, and I've got a bunch of other open things here. You know what? Let me just close a bunch of these. I don't think they are relevant, and they are probably a distraction. So let's close these up. Get rid of the visual noise. No, I don't care. Get rid of you. Don't save. If I wanted to save you, I would have put you in version control. No, don't save. Okay, so close. Okay, so here's the test. It's using the test is using this sort of old school mechanism for doing sort of asynchronous testing. We have like old tests for Moki test used to have like this crazy callback chain because there was no really nice way of doing async testing of async actions in JavaScript except for having like a callback that would continue your test that would when the callback was fired. Things have changed since then. We now have like generators and promises, and so you can have a generator that yields promises. And if you don't know what I mean by a generator is like a function that whenever it calls yield, it becomes a generator. So yield means I return a value, or I spew out a value to the caller. It's not really returning. It's like yielding a value to the caller. But if the caller were to call into me again, I don't think like it's calling in the traditional sense, but it's almost like if they were to call next on me, because a generator is kind of like an iterator. I know, a lot of jargon. But if the caller were to iterate on me, like call next on me, I will re-enter the function at the same point I had yielded from, if that makes any sense. So what you get is you can yield a promise, and then when the promise resolves, our test infrastructure calls next into the generator function, and we continue on from where we had left off. So what, like the upshot is, like there's all these words, but the end result is that we have this nice linear sequence of asynchronous actions. Where you just yield a promise whenever something async occurs, and then whenever it's done, we come back into the test and we continue on. So instead of having callback hell, we just yield promises. So that's what we're looking at here. Now this is using sort of so there was callbacks, and then there's yielding promises using a tool called add task for Moki test, and that's great. And then there was this sort of middle zone where we didn't have add task, but we did have promises, and we did have like generators. And during that time, these tests for new tab were written. And so like it's kind of using its own homebrew test runner thing to do yielding of not promises, but like it will yield, the function will just yield the test that we're running will just yield, and then another thing elsewhere will call, like there's no promise involved. Whenever some async action has occurred, it will like kick the test runner, and then we'll re-enter the function. So it's somewhat similar to add task, but instead of yielding promises, you just like yield nothing unless you need like a result. And I'm not even sure if this sort of homebrew test runner thing that the new tab uses will allow us to get results from things that we yield. I don't know. But that's kind of the story here. That's enough preamble. Let's examine the test. So the first thing that this test does is it sets this Boolean pref preload, so it's disabling new tab preloading. Okay, that's fine. And then I think this is the sort of the crux of the thing. Oh, sorry, not yet. And then we get a reports sites action function off of a directory links provider. I assume it's a function because I say that because later on we overwrite it. Excuse me. We overwrite it with this function, so I assume this is a previous function that we're holding a reference to. And then when we clean up the test, when the test is all over, we're basically saying, okay, when this is all over, put everything back the way it was. So we clear the preloading pref that we had set, and we also set report sites action back to the original report sites action. And then we do our override. So we have this object, it's empty, it's called expected, and then we override directory links provider report sites action, such that it's a function that takes three things: a sites, an action, and a site index. Again, I don't know what any of these things mean. I'm learning as I'm reading this. I don't actually know what these things mean. We get a link from sites, site index, and then we check the type versus the expected type. Okay. Report sites action. It might be necessary for me to understand when that's called within Gecko, because it looks like it's pretty important. I would suspect this is a problem of ordering, unless it's an actual bug in the new tab patch. So we do some checking to make sure that the link type and the action is what's expected, and then we check to make sure it's properly pinned, and then this is the function that like causes us to re-enter this run test function. I know, it's so crazy how it's like a snake eating its own tail. This function makes reference to something in its closure called expected, and in doing so it will execute soon testrunner.next, which causes us to re-enter the function. It's very but don't worry, we're gonna make it. So we set this thing up, but we don't actually execute any of this stuff yet, I don't think. Then we say what we expect for the next thing to occur, I guess, and we say that we're expecting that the last visible site, index 1, is reported. So we expect the type to be sponsored, the action to be view, and pinned to be false. Then we add a new tab page, tab, which just opens a new tab and waits for it to be ready. And then we wait for the new tab page tab and the report sites action. So by the time the new tab page is done rendering, this should be run, is my understanding. And then this should all, like, these conditions should be satisfied based on the report sites action. Now it's interesting because I think I need to know more about what this thing does. Report sites action. Before, like, this seems to be the crux of the whole thing. Like, what does this do and why? So what is it supposed to do? Let's take a look. Directory links provider. Report sites action. Report some action on a new tab page. So either a view or a click. I see. So my guess is that this has to do with the way the new tab page will sometimes show a sponsored link. So it might show, I don't know, here, you appear to be interested in working on web stuff. So we're showing you a link to Mozilla Developer Network. So that's a sponsored link example. And the action will be to view it, because we just show the page. So there's no actual clicking, or it's just viewing it. So that's what I expect is going on here. And we're making sure that this is recording what's occurring whenever the page is loaded. And if I am not mistaken, if I were to look at the test log, the first couple of things work out properly. Like this is the start of the test, and then we do get the expected type action and whether or not it's pinned. So I think this works. This, I believe, works. This, I believe, fails. So what we're going to do is I'm going to reduce how much this test fails by getting rid of a bunch of this test. I'm just going to like comment out a good chunk of it. And what I expect to occur is that this will still fail, but it won't fail as much. So we'll work on a small chunk. What I suspect is that all of these things, all these test failures, are probably related. I mean, in my experience, whenever you have something like this where a bunch of things that are kind of testing the same area are failing, due to a patch, they're probably somewhat related. I mean, that's usually the case. And if we can fix one of them, chances are we fixed, like, if we can reduce it to one failure, we might be able to fix a bunch of others, or maybe the rest of them. Who knows? Maybe we'll get all of them. So we reduce it down to like a single failure, see if we can understand that. And at the very least, we gain an understanding of what directory links provider does and like how it all works. So yes, we did get the failure here that we expected. So we got 4 passes. The 4 passes were what? Here, pass, and then pass. We got this failure when we expected history, and that's here. So when we click on a thing, we're supposed to click on the button and report the site's action. Okay. We're actually not just clicking on the item, we're clicking on the pin button. That's what we're attempting to do, and that's why we're supposed to be seeing the pin action. Okay. Oh, I understand. So we preload these 2 things at the top. One should be an organic. I don't really understand what organic versus sponsored is, but add a new tab. We have, so suppose that this is the one that is sponsored in slot whatever site index, and we expect it to be pinned. When page is updated, wait for add new page tab and report site's action. Now, when page is updated is what's called whenever the page, like, when the page is done refreshing itself, we fire an event in the new tab page to sort of signal to really the test framework that, okay, we've changed the grid somehow, the new tab grid, and it's okay to proceed, because there's a lot of async action that occurs in the new tab page. And like, say where you drag one tile to the other, there's like some computation, and we do this animation, and when it's all done, we fire this event to tell the parent we're good, and then the parent says, okay, now we can proceed. And when page is updated is this thing that if we go into the head of this test, so every test has like, every Moki test, most Moki tests in like a directory, they'll have this like shared head.js, which is a bunch of utility functions. So let me open it up. Utility functions for this particular directory of tests anyways. And when page is updated is where? Here. And I can see some of Ursula's logging, that's fine. When pages, so this is the event that we're talking about, the about new tab updated, and then we remove the event listener, and then we execute soon the callback, where if it's not supplied, then it just means to kick the test again. We also do this like add observers thing. What is that? About new tab, add observers. And we register remove observers. Don't know if this is necessary. This is suspicious. Observers, like, I don't think it's necessary for about new tab, which is a singleton. It exists in the parent process to repeatedly add the observers. And this register cleanup function, like, this could be called any number of times within a test. and register cleanup function is called whenever the test is done. So about new tab, add observers could be called an arbitrary number of times within a single test, which would potentially mean that unless add observer does the smart thing, which is to determine that these observers already exist, it would mean that like we're like calling these observers multiple times. I'm not entirely sure if that's the case, but it's possible. So this is suspicious. But that's how when page is updated works. I wonder if we add new tab page tab, does that wait for when page is updated? I think it does. Add new tab page promise. Wait for condition. I don't know if it does. In fact, I don't think it does. I don't think it does. This entire test suite needs to be rejigged to use the add task stuff. It's kind of weird being down here in the archaic land of the sort of middle ground of testing. Although, when page is updated sets up the event listener and then we yield for it. We synthesize a mouse at center. Okay, we're going to do something interesting, I think, is I'm just going to see whether or not this node that we're clicking for pinning the tab makes sense. So I'm going to like decorate it with an outline in the test, and then I'm going to cause the test to hang so that we can see whether or not like we're actually clicking on the right thing. So I'm going to say pin button dot style dot border, I think, equals 1px solid red. I think that'll work. Style border. Let's test whether or not that would work. Document dot body dot style border equals 1px solid red. Yes, that works. You can tell because of this red. I guess you can't tell because maybe the resolution's too small. Let me add more. That works whenever I add more border to the body. So that syntax will work. Border. None. Okay. So we will set that. I'm going to actually make it more explicit. 5px, and then I'm going to yield again, and I believe nothing should cause the test runner to kick, so we'll probably hang right here. And that's fine. That will be enough to tell me whether or not we're clicking on the right thing. Because that's my first hypothesis. I should probably write that down. Hypothesis. Failing. Focus got ripped from me from the opening window. Failing part of the test is due to the fact that we're clicking on the wrong pin. Test. Add red outline to pin being clicked. Result. Okay, let's see what it does. So there's the red outline. That's the thing we would hope to be clicked. And this is the sponsored one. And is that what we are wanting? Click the pin button on the link in the 1th tile spot. So that's the one that's here. And is that the one we wanted to have pinned? This one says we expect it to be history, so that tiles become history when pinned. Aha! Aha! And is that not the case? That the type of the link might not have changed. Link type. So what changes the type of the link? What changes it? So here we are in directory links provider again. Is there anything in here that manually changes anything to history? Equals history. What would change the... I guess I'd have to look at the pinning code. And I'd also have to look at the code that we're using now to pin link, pin state, pinned links, and then we pin link index. So new tab utils. New tab utils? Where are you? What? Where is new tab utils? .jsm. I thought so. Why are you not finding that, DXR? It's under toolkit modules. There it is. DXR. Pull yourself together. Maybe I spelled it wrong. I don't know. I shouldn't blame DXR. All right. How are we doing for time here? 126. All right. My sound effects aren't working. I was playing a sound effect just now. Let's try it again. This is important stuff.
Hey, what happened?
There we go. So pin link. Pinned links. Pin, here we go. Clear the link's old position if any. Change pin link into a history link. So make history link. So this is what is supposed to be called on the link. And we set the type to history. So this is the part that's supposed to be being exercised here in this test. And for some reason, when we click on that pin, it's not being changed to a history link. And let's take a look at the failure again. Got expected pinned. It looks like it was never even pinned whenever we do this. When we click it, we expect it to be pinned, but it's false. And then what is the action? Because there's like an action here, expected action. So the first failure is, let's take a look. Got expected type, fails. We got sponsored, we expected history because we had pinned it. We expected it to be pinned, but it's not. We expected it to be pinned, but we did get the expected action, which was pinning. So for some reason, the pinning has not occurred even though the action was pinned. What? That's a curiosity. That's very curious. So, nope, that's not what I want to DXR. I want to DXR this. What is up with DXR today? Is DXR just completely busted? There we go. Report sites action. What calls report sites action? I guess I should have probably read this. And in this case, it's pin that we want to see. Whoever calls the action whenever it's pin. Pin. Nothing. So it must be some level of abstraction here. How about if I look for the string pin with the quotes? No. do I search for quotes? I need to escape these quotes. What if I put the quotes in quotes? That's kind of working. No. This is not going as planned. So what I should do, actually, before instead of like continuing to just randomly guess, is I should debug this. Debugger statement. And I will run this test again with the JS debugger. And then when we hit that debugger statement, I believe this is true for code even if it's written in a test, I believe the debugger will break at that point. Like hit a breakpoint, not just stop working, but hit a breakpoint. I believe that's the case.
That's right!
What? Could not start a... There's something already running on port. On the port? What port? Failed to bind socket on port 4433. What could possibly be running on port 4433? 4443. I think there's like a way to get what's running on a particular port here. 444. Someone somewhere probably knows the special command to figure it out. But I think what I want to do is, I suspect that there is a Firefox still running. No? It's just this one. That's fine. So what's running on 4443? Not an HTTP server. Let's try that again, just to be sure. If you're watching this and you want to like tell me something, maybe you're... Oh, see, that worked. I don't know what the dealio was there. So debugger is open. Runs a test. Okay, we hit the debugger. Great. So what calls report sites action? Report last visible tile index. Well, this is for still the first like passing one. So I'm going to continue. What? And then I crash. I crashed for some reason. That's not helpful. I'm going to try it again. Why would I have crashed? Okay, run the tests. Continue. No! No! Damn it. Okay, well, we know I hit it the first time. So instead of doing debugger, I'll do this. New. So I should probably file a bug. So follow up. I'll add a follow up. Oh, result for this was we appear to be clicking the right thing. Follow ups. File a bug for the crashing browser when debugging the test. But I'm not going to let that stop me, so let's just dump a stack for every time this is called, and that will tell us what's not BN every time this is called. Okay. I would like to have this figured out before the end of this episode. That is the goal. We can do it.
Okie dokie.
Believe.
Mamma mia.
Alright. So here's some stacks. And then this is the one where things fail. When we click on a site. Oh, it thinks we've clicked on the site and not the pin. We synthesize the mouse. And then the page handles an event. So new tab, JS. page handle event. So that's probably in page.js. So the new tab.js code is like broken up into all of these like build time include files. And so that kind of makes finding things hard. But page handle event handles all page events. Where is the thing that handles clicking on a pinned link? Because that's what appears to have happened. We've clicked on the site and not the actual pin. That is what appears to have occurred. So, what is the thing that is called to pin a link? Set pin state. What calls that? Nope. So something in the parent listens for pinning, pin link. That's the message. So something sends pin link. Where is that? Where is that? Sites.js. Pin link. Pin link. Here we go. Set when we pin, we send new tab pin link. And what calls this dot pin? Whoops. Here on click handles site click events in site on click, which is on the stack. And then we report the action. And the action in this case we would have hoped was action equals pin. But I suspect it's not. If not pinned, so what we actually get is we get the right action, but when we call this dot pin, sites tile index, when we call this dot pin, update attributes. What is this? Okay, I think I know what's happening. I think I know what is happening. Hypothesis. Okay, so let me spew out. So I think it's gonna. Let's take a look at the old code, like the current code, and then I think I can explain what's going on here. Sites.js. Okay. So on click. So here's us clicking on a site, and this is all working properly. And we get down here and we realize that we're clicking on the pin icon. That's this thing on one of these new tab links. That's this icon right up here, this pin. And we determine that by looking at the target and finding out that it's got like the new tab control pin class, and we find out whether or not the item is pinned or not. And then by doing so, we determine whether it's supposed to pin and unpin, and then we call unpin or pin. And back in like the original code, these are synchronous actions. Unpin causes us to unpin a link. Pin causes us to pin a link synchronously. And then directory links provider reports sites action. Whenever this runs, the grid sites has already been updated. I believe what Ursula's code does is because all of like the pinning and unpinning requires modifying like storage. What we do is we send a message to the parent that says, okay, we want to pin this thing. And until we get a response back, we are assuming that it won't be pinned. Like, we don't change the values until we get a response back from the parent saying this thing is pinned. So I think that's the problem. Let me write that down. We're failing to set the pin. So let me. Directory links provider is being run synchronously for every click on a pin or a site. previously, when clicking on the pin, we would synchronously set the pinned or unpinned state of a site before calling directory links provider dot report sites action. Now, since pinning and unpinning is async, by the time we call directory links provider dot report sites action before the pinned unpinned state has been set. So how can I prove that? Test. So that's the hypothesis. How can I prove it? Well, probably with logging. Add logging for when we set the pinned state. And I'll bet you that after this occurs and we fail the test, we'll see a message come down to the child saying, okay, that site's now in the pinned state. And that message is pin link. Pin state. So whatever responds to that. Take a look at the patch. Whoops. That's my calendar. Unprivileged. Sorry, I'm slouching. So the question was pin state in the child in G, was it page.js? So we've already got that open. Pin state. Set pin state. This is what sets the link's pin state. So dump setting pin state on site link URL to message.data pin state. So the test is, if we see this message occurring after the failure and the pin state says pinned, but that occurs after the failure, then my hypothesis is correct. So let's find out. Now, because we made a change to the core code, we have to rebuild this. Mock build browser base. How are we doing on time? 143. Making good headway. If this is the solution to that first bit, then we can see if it's the solution for the next bits as well, I think. We might be able to like jury rig the test or something. Or quickly patch it to make it work. Aha! To true, and that's after the failure. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Test result. Yes, this is the case. We set the pinned state after calling report sites action. So, conclusion. What I suspect we want to do is, in the child, in the content, for the page that we just set the pin state on, set the state synchronously in the child, and then report it to the parent, and then the parent can like update everyone else about the new pin state of that site. But we probably still want to synchronously set it in the child for like the actual like Boolean property on the site object, and then tell the parent, okay, save this value for in our storage, and tell everyone, all the other new tab pages, the same thing. That's probably what we want to do. Recommendation is what I'll write. Recommendation. Synchronously set the pinned state on the site when sending up the pin site command or message to the parent. pinned and unpinned state. So let's see if that works, because I might be able to quickly hack that in. Sites. Pin. So if I, like, this is link pin state. So like if I do this dot link dot, the problem now is that, like, no, you know what? I think I'm wrong about this solution. Because the other thing that needs to occur is, it's not just the pin state, it's like whether or not the type of the link is now history. We might want directory links provider report sites action to be run in the parent instead. That's another idea. Alternatively, since we don't necessarily want to duplicate the state setting in the child and the parent, run directory links provider dot report sites action. Ursula is watching and she is +1ing one of my solutions. I'm not sure which one, but she likes one of them. Which one, Ursula? Let me know. But I'm starting to lean more towards running report sites action in the parent, because I think it makes more sense there. Yeah, she likes that one. Yeah. Yeah, do the second one. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Synergy.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that's my recommendation for that failure. And that's, you know what? It's like I said, I'm pretty sure that this is what's going to be causing the rest of these failures as well. Because when unpinning will have the same problem. And blocking a site, I believe, will also have the same problem. Click. Yeah, blocking will have the same problem. So, okay, that's my recommendation. I think that's what we should do. So, that's my recommendation. And I'm going to write this up in the bug, just for the record. I would recommend running directory links provider dot, what was it, report sites action in the parent in about new tab rather than in the content when clicking on pin, unpin, block, etc. This is because report sites action is expecting when clicking, not when, but like immediately after. This is because report sites action is expecting the pin, unpin, block action to have occurred already. But since we're sending a message to the parent to do these actions, the states have not yet been updated. If we move report sites action into about new tab or something after these actions have occurred, then we can guarantee that the states have been set by now because we're doing them synchronously in the parent. Set not by now, by then. Set by the time it's called because we're doing them synchronously in the parent. Boom. Recommendation written. And now we have this like, this was an interesting crash. I was thinking of filing a follow-up bug. So in order to figure out, so I'm going to revert my changes. In order to figure out like what the dealio is with this crash, I'm thinking we should do a debug build, then reproduce the steps in order to get into the crashing state, and then get a stack trace, and then we'll file a bug for the crash. In the meantime, let's take a look at our agenda, because we've done this. We've figured out, we've answered this. Answered. And we put that right here at the bottom. So that's done. The next thing I wanted to do is actually review the rest of the patch. I'd started looking at it yesterday. I want to finish the review, so that's the thing we could do today. And while I'm doing that, this debug build will just kick off in the background and do its thing. Oh, it's a clobber build, so hold on to your hats. We might be here for a while. Okay. So let's start here. Again, I think I already had this open, but whatever. Please expect my machine, because I'm doing a build in the background now, to get a little sluggish. So there are two parts to Ursula's change here. The first is converting about new tab, and then the second is fixing up the tests. And let's look at the first. I've already given the first a couple of look-throughs. I think Marina, who knows the new tab page front to back, she's on the content services team, and she's like an expert on the new tab page. Whereas I'm more of a plumbing guy. Like, I understand sort of how the plumbing works, but the actual behaviors of the new tab page are a little opaque to me. But M2 Marina really knows the new tab page really, really well. So she's also reviewing this. So we're going to be looking at this big patch. This is a big patch. In retrospect, it may have been better to recommend that Ursula break this up into smaller patches, like individual patches. That's actually a harder thing to do if you're doing a lot of exploratory work. It's easier once. That's an easier thing to do if you know exactly how you want to proceed. But because Ursula and I basically were just kind of feeling out how this is going to work, and we were experimenting and trying things and failing and trying things and succeeding, etc., etc. Going back and trying to break it up into individual patches seemed like too much work. So we have this big blob of a patch, but that's okay. That's how the cookie crumbles. So the first thing I'm going to look at is this customize.js file. It's already making use of the about new tab infrastructure that we've put in. I don't know if you know this, but if you look inside the tree right now, I'm just demonstrating how slow my machine is. Luckily, I'm not dropping any frames. Am I recording? Good. Just double checking. About new tab.jsm. Come on. DXR is supposed to be smart enough to find it on the first try, but sometimes it's been acting funny today. So about new tab doesn't really do a whole lot in tree like right now, but what it does is it uses the remote page manager thing, which if you've never used it before, it's quite handy, which basically drills this this hole in between Chrome and the Chrome process, the parent process, and the content process, to use messages to communicate back and forth. And it's already being used in About Plugins. If you were to go to About Plugins, the information that this is an HTML document actually about plugins, and it uses the plugin, the remote page manager, to query the parent for all of this information in here, and it does it without having to do like a whole. There used to be this way you could do it with like a frame script and event bubbling to kind of hack around. So a remote page manager allows you to kind of like avoid all of the event hackery and just like send async messages between the parent, some manager and the parent, and like a set of pages that match a particular URL, in this case about new tab. right here. We create one and then we add a message listener into the customize panel. So right now, she's got it working so that customization, that's this stuff. Like if I were to open this panel and like change to only show a blank page, this works by sending a message to the parent, which then is propagated to the child, and then we show nothing. And that's using messages. And it's, again, it's really slow and janky right now, but that's because I'm doing a build in the background. It's nothing to do with her patch. Okay. Build in the background. Okay, so the reason I add that preamble is because she's continuing to make use of remote page manager here by using send async message. Before she was saying, like, this is for the, again, the panel, and she was using G all pages enhanced before, but because G all pages, I think she's essentially removed the necessity of, like, there was this indirections that you'd read this enhanced state off of G all pages, when really, I mean, it's the browser, it's a pref that we can just send up and flip. So here she is just doing that, and that's fine. Enhanced, and this flips that pref, because we can't actually set prefs in the content process. We can read them, we cannot set them. And then she does something similar for updating what is selected in the customize panel. She reads the prefs, and then instead of reading that off of G all pages, she just reads the prefs directly. That's fine. Okay, next. So when dragging, she created this principle, G principle. Why? I think I knew this. Check that we're not accepting URLs. So this is a security thing, and it has to do with whether or not like a URL that's being dragged in is valid. Say, because I don't know if you know this, but if you were to like go to the new tab page, you can actually drag some other URL in. Like I can go to here and I can like take this URL from the URL bar and I can drag it to the new tab page and I can just drop it right in there. And I double clicked, so that's why I moved. But that's a way, like that's a thing that you can do. I didn't actually know that until a couple of days ago when Ursula showed me, but that's a thing you can do. And like, hang on. Do we see it propagating? Okay, this whole build in the background thing is killing me. I think that's reducing my ability to do this review succinctly. So let me try that again. I'm gonna copy this, drag it in a new tab. Whoop. Boom. See? I can drag a tile in. And then it goes and gets a thumbnail for it. That's pretty neat. So I'm gonna remove that. So the way she's doing it is she creates the principle for the About New tab page. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're not accepting URLs being dragged in, which would inherit the caller's principle. So such as JavaScript URLs or data URLs. Aha! That is a good idea. We do not want to do that. So she makes sure that the get no app code base principle URI for About New tab, and then check load URI stir with principle. So we do the security check. Don't allow the drag to happen if it's something like this, like data text HTML, and then I think that's hang on, I've done this before. Hold up. Data text HTML and then semicolon HTML body hello body HTML. I think that'll work. Well, no, it doesn't like it. Data URIs. I feel like I have to learn this every time, the format for the data URI scheme. Actually, even better, I'll look at our testing code makes much use of the data URI model, or what's the word I'm looking for? The data URI scheme. So I can just copy this and like put something in the body like, oh hi Mark. There you go. Now if I were to attempt to drag this this URL into the new tab page, the current new tab page does not allow it. It's like, no can do, buddy. And that's what she's enforcing in this patch, or in this change here. And so I want to make sure that some of the rules are the same. So before she was calling check load URI with glink checker, and we should see how that thing used to work. Check load URI. And then there's this like do check load URI, which goes ahead and does this stuff. And then it caches things. There's a cache. Return true, return false. What principle does it use? G principle. So it's using the same idea for G principle. Puts it in the top of drag. Okay, that's fine. Disallow inherit principle. That is a thing we should check. G principle. Disallow inherit principle and don't report errors are the two flags. And that is what she is passing, so that's good. Now, one thing that is missing is that we used to cache these values, I think. We cached the value. So I don't know how important that is. I don't know how expensive this sort of check is, but if it is important, then maybe that's a thing that I'm not too worried about caching this unless this proves to be like crazy expensive. That's the thing I can actually test right now with her patch. So here's her patch. This is all running in the content process. Look, it's got the E10S suffix. You can't see where I'm pointing. I always point. But there's an E10S suffix, so you know that this is running out of process. So that's great. I'm going to unpin a bunch of things because there's a performance problem where dragging and dropping with a bunch of pinned links causes a lot of performance lag, and she's looking into that right now. But in the meantime, I will unpin all of these. This is all sending async messages to the parent to do the unpinning. See, all unpinned. And now I'm going to like use that URL, and I'm going to attempt to copy this into here. I'm going to see if the browser janks really hard. Not at all. I don't think I care, as Brad Lassie would say. Whereas if we were to use something like manager, or the search, we'll do this. Try and drag this in. It likes that. Boom. And it goes and gets a thumbnail. Yeah, that works really, really well. Unpin that. Boom. Gone. Oh, brilliant. Okay, I'm happy with that. So that's good. Don't allow the drag to happen. So this is some commented out code. What do we need to do here? what's going on there. Before, let's expand some context here. So when we were to drop a site, after we drop the site, sites after drop, pin the dragged or insert the new site, cancel delayed arrange, and then send an update. Update the grid and move all the sites to their new places. But we don't do that anymore. So I don't know if this is even necessary. This actually might have something to do with the performance problem that Ursula and I were looking at earlier today. Maybe, maybe not. Okay. So here, where are we? This is whenever we pin a dragged site. See, this is why I love documentation. I know exactly what's coming in here. A cell, the drop target cell, and then the drag exit event. So this must be in response to a drag exit, I guess. And we used to do this pin where we like pin the link and then we immediately unblock it. But here we are saying pin the link and then we're passing ensure unblocked is true. And that makes sense. A new link was dragged onto the grid created by pinging its URL. Also make sure the newly added link is not blocked. Great. Although, is there ever a case where we'll want to pin a link but keep it blocked? I'm under the impression that this is not a state we should actually be able to get in. If that's the case, I wonder if ensure unblocked is even necessary. Like, I'll bet we should uniformly ensure that whatever is being pinned is also unblocked. What's the time? 2:07.
I can't do my work!
It's not going to be enough time to finish this review, but we're going to get pretty far. So what's this? Get pinned range. What does this do? Again. Determines the range of pinned sites surrounding the drop target cell. We need a pinned range only when dropping on a pinned site. And we were originally using gpinned links, but now we're using the grid's pinned links. And that's probably because gpinned links is not even available anymore. Like, we just want to know about the current state in the page. And I have a feeling that's where grid_pinned links is. So that makes sense. Yeah, this is where she's storing it. The currently pinned links. Yeah. So this is when the grid starts up. When we init, we get the grid, create a site fragment, and then we send a message to initialize the grid. We also add a message listener for update links. Resize the grid as soon as the page loads. Okay. And we also add in a resize event listener. That's still here. Okay. That's interesting. So refresh is called whenever update links is called. Okay. So a message comes down. We can actually keep the new function definition style. Refresh message. Okay. We get the links from the message data, and then for each one we create a div. We get the rows and columns. And then we append child of the fragment, create the cells, create the sites. Then we say that we are ready. And then we set the pinned links to be the pinned links from the parent because we've been updated. Sorry, just reading. Okay. Oh. You also want to resize now if the page is already loaded. When initializing the grid, the user toggle the page. Okay. So far, this all seems pretty kosher. Show if necessary. Intro shown. Yep. Yep. Wait. Show if necessary. Before, it's probably only necessary if not services prefs get bool pref intro shown to send this message. Might as well put this back inside the conditional. Bunch of this gunk got taken out of newtab.js. That's probably good. So where are we? We're about a quarter, almost a third of the way through this patch. Woo! We have about 15 minutes. I should point out, Ricardo, one of our top designers from the Mozilla Foundation, will be doing the Hour of Design right after this, more or less right after Joy of Coding, around 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So do the time zone calculations yourself. He'll be doing it on YouTube. There's a link in my agenda. I'll mention it again when the episode's over, but he's doing it after this. He'll be sitting right here, right where I'm sitting right now, and you can watch him do his thing because he kicks butt. Let's see. I'm just looking for any. Okay, let's just proceed. So this page has a unique window ID. That is true. We do this like getter hack, and the reason we do this is so every time the new tab page is updated, I believe we send the name. The parent will send down the outer window ID of the currently selected browser. And if the currently selected browser's outer window ID matches this window ID, we know we don't need to update this page because the currently selected browser is the one that gave us the command, in theory, gave us the command to actually update things. So this is a way of ensuring that whenever you pin a link, that we don't have to redraw everything for this page because we update it as soon as you click on it synchronously, more or less, like the UI. Tell the parent about it, and then the parent, we want it to tell everyone else, all the other About New Tab pages, but not us because we already know. We want to update our internal state, but having to redraw everything is not necessary. So that's what this does. We do that check with outer window ID. We listen for all these things. We also listen for unload. Check if the new tab feature is enabled. Yes. Listens for notifications specific to this page. Now, what's interesting is that this used to be sort of styled like an NSI observer that ran in the parent, but because the observer notification that we're interested in is not fired in the child, we have an observer in the parent that basically sends all of the data from the parent down to the child, which we then proxy to this observe method. And I'm not entirely sure if we want to keep this in the long run, but it'll do for now. So we grab the topic and the data, and we see like if a pref was changed, then update selected, enabled, data attributes enabled, show intro if necessary. Okay. Okay. Initialize the whole page. We haven't done that yet. If it turns out that the observation that we saw was that a thumbnail was created, then we say, okay, refresh the thumbnail for this page, for each site. Say, okay, we will refresh this thumbnail. Okay, that makes sense. So, we had brief discussion about this morning, but now I forget. Do we still want to pass down a reason here? Do not refresh the entire grid for the page we're on, as refreshing will cause tiles to flash briefly. It is okay to refresh page is not currently visible, but ignore updates for the currently visible page. Hang on a second. Page visibility API. Is visible or in focus? Background. Partial. The page con's not pre-render. Hidden. The page content is not visible to the user. Okay, never mind. I thought maybe we might be able to use the visibility state. Like, just don't update the page if it's the one that's visible. But I don't know if that's the right move. Okay, let's keep moving. If the current window ID equals message, might as well just use this .window ID instead of current window ID. Also, not message .data refresh. If the tiles are changed location, you unping, blocking, restoring. Immediately if we're visible. And there's this like scheduling thing. Alright. So here's where we set the pin state. possible that we have set, like we have two sites with the same URL? If so, if not, maybe we should break after the first match. Also, I wonder if it's worth considering having a grid.sites be a map mapping URLs to sites, site objects, to avoid these kinds of loops, maybe as work for a follow-up. All right. Says pinned. I wonder if we should set the pin state immediately. Well, no. Again, I feel weird about that. I'm feeling kind of wishy-washy about this. But I wonder if we should consider setting the pin state synchronously in here. Or are we certain there are no callers that assume that a link will return true for is pinned immediately after calling pin? If we were to do that, we'd also need to set the state for the other bits that are implied when pinning on not blocked. What else? Not blocked, history, etc. Okay. Replace pin link. This is probably another one of those things that we expected it to be sync, but it is async now. Enhanced equals services. Enhanced link. Okay. Captures the site's thumbnail in the background. Well, if there's no existing thumbnail and the page allows background captures. Okay. Refreshes the thumbnail. Get URI. So this is all about thumbnails, I think. Link equals message enhanced. Enhanced. This link or this link. Only enhanced tiles if that feature is turned on. Get URI. Who calls get URI? So whenever the parent is going to send us a message, I guess. Directory links for get enhanced link. Get enhanced link. Enhanced image URI and link. Then link. Otherwise, enhanced links get new tab utils. Extract site. Extract site. Creates a new URL. Gets the enhanced link object. What is the enhanced link object? I wonder if we can just make sure that when the parent sends down the link that it's the enhanced link object if available. Or file message data URI. Okay. I mentioned this in person, but we probably don't want to have a single message listener per site. Where are we? This is sites.js, right? Yeah, per site, like this. We probably want to have a general new tab, like thumbnail URI or something message that passes down the URI, and then have a listener down here iterate the sites, or if we convert to a map, just O1 ourselves to the site object and set the site URI. And O of 1 is nerd talk for do a one, basically a very cheap hash lookup. Do restore. So I'm about halfway through. We got 1.5 minutes, folks. I think we're running out of time. I think we should call it a day, pretty much. So I'm going to stop this review here, but let's take a look at what we did. I will actually continue this review and then publish it in like probably half an hour, and then you're welcome to read the final review in this bug. But what we did was we figured out why this test was probably failing, and we have an answer on how we should probably proceed on that. So we figured that out, and then we did this review. So that's pretty cool. We did a good chunk of work during this episode. Yeah!
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Hi-oh!
That's very exciting. I like it whenever we move forward. So, a couple of things to point out. There is a new episode of Lost in Data. These episodes, they come out not very regularly. They just periodically. Joel Marr will do an episode, and he's got a new one up. This is episode 2, and he does some triage of some Talos regressions, and he starts like investigating and doing some like bisecting and stuff. It's very, very neat. I suggest you check it out if you're interested in how we figure out performance problems in Firefox. It's 39 minutes long. It's a great watch. Highly recommended. Also, coming up right after me in about almost exactly half an hour, starting right now in 30 minutes, Ricardo is up next with episode 6 of The Hour of Design. You can watch that on YouTube live. He's streaming it. If you click here, there should be a big countdown. 29 minutes, 49 seconds. He's going to be sitting right here in this seat, and you can watch him do his thing. He kicks butt, and I highly recommend it. And yeah, I mean, live hacking, it's great. if you are out there, if you are a Mozillian out there and you want to do some live hacking, I want to talk to you. And so does Richard in hash live hacking. I think that's live hacking on irc.mozilla.org. We want to get you live hacking. We want some more shows on here showing people what it is that we do. Whether it is that you're, it could be anything. It doesn't even have to be hacking. I mean, what Joel Marr does is, he does some hackery with Python and stuff, but he's doing some triaging, and that, I think, more than qualifies. And I think it's neat to show people what it is that we do on the Mozilla project. So yeah, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be about Mozilla-y things, like Morgan, who, if you go check down here on my links section, she was learning how to work with Go, and she wrote this WebSocket implementation in Go, and it's really badass, and she does it to techno music. So I highly recommend you check that out. You watch someone figure out Go, and that was pretty neat. So I'm going to cap this episode. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching episode 24 of The Joy of Coding. Great work today. And yeah, I'll be seeing you next week. So until then, take care, keep hacking, keep rocking the free web, something.
The joy of coding.
Thanks for watching. Have a good week.